This is question 25 of Prima Secunda of the Summa Theologia. This is the order of the passions one to another. And a couple of quick things to note before we get into these four articles is that, first of all, Thomas is very interested in order in the Summa. Order in every regard is important, whether it be the hierarchy of being from God to the angels to man to the sensitive creatures to the nutritive creatures. The order makes a lot of sense to him, and it's very, very fundamental in understanding the Summa Theologia. For example, there are four cardinal virtues, but he ranks them. Prudence is the most important in the order of the four, because it has to do with our intellect and our reason, and that Thomas would say is the most important faculty of the human person. The angels are ordered. The seraphim is the highest, the cherubim the next, because of their universality, right? The theological virtues are ordered, with charity being number one. The sacraments are ordered. I mean, at least he says the Eucharist is the greatest of the sacraments, and so that's important. And also, just keep in mind that we have two types of passions: the concupiscible and the irascible. And it's something that you might want to commit to memory. I actually have a little cheat sheet here, so no shame if you don't have these memorized. The concupiscible are three pairs: love, hatred, desire, aversion, joy, and sadness. The irascible: hope, despair, fair, daring, and anger. And anger does not have an opposite, as we learned about. So we'll go through these four articles as quickly as we possibly can. The first one says whether the irascible passions precede the concupiscible passions or vice versa. Okay, which ones come first? And as you might expect, it's not as simple and easy as just saying, well, it's, the concupiscible or the irascible. Thomas says, in the concupiscible passions, there is more diversity than in the passions of the irascible. For in the former, the concupiscible, we find something relating to movement, for example, desire, and something belonging to repose, joy, and sadness. Okay, so when you are experiencing joy or sadness, you are resting in the good, or not resting in the good, as in the case of sadness. But in the irascible passions, there is nothing pertaining to repose, and only that which belongs to movement. Now, this is very important. None of the irascibles imply repose or rest. It doesn't conclude. There's always some movement one way or another with regard to the irascibles. The reason of this is that when we find rest in a thing, we no longer look upon it as something difficult or arduous, whereas such is the object of the irascible faculty. Okay, remember, the irascible by its very nature is arduous. It's something difficult. Now, since rest is the end of movement, it is first in the order of intention. Okay, this means what are we going after before we start to actually execute the action, right? But last in the order of execution. If, therefore, we compare the passions of the irascible faculty with those of the concupiscible passions that denote rest in good, as we just mentioned, joy and sorrow, it is evident that in the order of execution, the irascible passions take precedence of such like passions of the concupiscible faculty. Thus, hope precedes joy. Okay, you hope for something that will result in joy, and hence causes it. But the concupiscible passion, which denotes rest in evil, sadness, comes between two irascible passions, because it follows fear, since we become sad when we are confronted by the evil that we feared, while it precedes the movement of anger, since the movement of self-vindication results from sadness, is a movement of anger. And because it is looked upon as a good thing to pay back the evil done to us, when the angry man has achieved this, he rejoices. Okay, so he's on his way to joy. But if we compare the irascible passions to those concupiscible passions that denote movement, then it is clear that the latter take precedence, because the passions of the irascible faculty add something to those of the concupiscible faculty, just as the object of the irascible adds the aspect of arduousness or difficulty to the object of the concupiscible faculty. Thus, hope adds to desire and a certain effort and a certain raising of the spirits to the realization of the arduous good. In like manner, fear adds to aversion or detestation, a certain lowness of spirits on account of difficulty or shunning of the evil. Accordingly, the passions of the irascible faculty stand between those concupiscible passions that denote movement towards good or evil, and those concupiscible passions that denote rest in good and evil. And it is therefore evident that the irascible passions both arise and terminate in the passions of the concupiscible faculties. So I don't think he gave us a straight answer here. I think it varies depending on which of the particular, irascible or concupiscible passions that you're talking about in this particular case. All right, is love the first of the concupiscible passions? Okay, so again, we have love, hatred, desire, aversion, joy, and sadness, right? 3 are positive, 3 are negative. He says good and evil are the object of the concupiscible faculty. Now good naturally precedes evil, since evil is a privation of good. Wherefore all the passions, the object of which is good, are naturally before those, the object of which is evil. That is to say, each precedes its contrary passion, because the quest of a good is the reason for shunning the opposite evil. So now 3 of the concupiscibles have been eliminated as far as what is the first. So it's not going to be hatred, aversion, or sadness. Now we have love, desire, and joy. Now good has the aspect of an end, and the end is indeed first in the order of intention, but last in the order of execution. Consequently, the order of the concupiscible passions can be considered either in the order of intention or in the order of execution. In the order of execution, the first place belongs to that which takes place first in the thing that tends to the end. Now it is evident that whatever tends to an end has in the first place an aptitude or proportion to that end, for nothing tends to disproportionate ends. Okay, so this would be love. We move towards something because we love it, right? And this very aptitude or proportion of the appetite to good is love. Okay, that's why we do what we do because of love, which is completely in good, while movement towards good is desire or concupiscence, and rest in good is joy or pleasure. Accordingly, in this order, love precedes desire, and desire precedes pleasure, but in the order of intention, it is the reverse, because the pleasure intended causes desire and love. So if it's intention, you want the joy, okay? You're looking for the joy, and then that you move towards something that you love because you realize it's going to provide joy. Okay, Article 3. Is hope the first of the irascible passions? And again, the irascibles are hope, despair, fear, daring, and anger. All irascible passions imply movement towards something. Now, this movement of the irascible faculty towards something may be due to 2 causes. One is the mere aptitude or proportion to the end, and this pertains to love or hatred, those whose object is good or evil, and this belongs to sadness or joy. Now, those are concupiscibles. As a matter of fact, the presence of good produces no passion in the irascible, but the presence of evil gives rise to the passion of anger. Since then, in order of generation or execution, proportion or aptitude to the end precedes the achievement of the end. It follows that of all the irascible passions, anger is the last in the order of generation. And among the other passions of the irascible faculty, which imply a movement arising from love of good or hatred of evil, those whose object is good, hope and despair, must naturally precede those whose object is evil, daring, and fear. So you see what he's doing. He's got the 5. He's trying to figure out which is the first. He eliminated anger, so you're down to 4. Now, 2 of those have good as their object, 2 have evil. So he's eliminated the 2 that have evil as their object, which are fear and daring. So now he's down to hope and despair, the object of which is the good. Now you can probably imagine what he's going to do here. Yet so that hope precedes despair, since hope is a movement toward good as such, which is essentially attractive, so that hope tends to good directly, whereas despair is a movement away from good, a movement which is consistent with good, not as such, but in respect of something else, wherefore its tendency from good is accidental, as it were. So the object of despair is good, but you're running away from it, whereas with hope, you're running towards the good. So he's going to conclude that ultimately the greatest of the irascibles is going to be hope. All right, finally, Article 4, whether these are the four principal passions: joy, sadness, hope, and fear. Now he's going to say, yes, these are the four principal passions, which you might say, well, why not love? Well, why joy and sadness? Why not love? Why would that be one of the principal ones? He says these four are commonly called the principal passions. Two of them, joy and sadness, are said to be principal because in them all the other passions have their completion. Okay, so it all ends in either joy or sadness, an end. Wherefore they arise from all the other passions. Fear and hope are principal passions, not because they complete the others simply, but because they complete them as regard the movement of the appetite towards something. For in respect of good, movement begins in love, goes forward to desire, and ends in hope, right? While in respect of evil, it begins in hatred, goes to aversion, and ends in fear. Hence it is customary to distinguish these four passions in relation to the present and the future. For movement regards the future, while rest is something present, so that joy relates to present good, sadness relates to present evil, hope regards to future good, and fear future evil. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Finally, last little paragraph here. As to the other passions that regard good or evil, present or future, they all culminate in these four. For this reason, some have said that these four are the principal passions, because they are general passions. And this is true provided that by hope and fear we understand the appetite's common tendency to desire or shun something. Okay, so that was question number 25, 4 articles on the order of the passions to one another. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you tomorrow for question 26. God bless you.